Chapter 2 Moth Wings. She had seen the Spitfires climbing over town, their dark, moth-like shapes against the clear, cold spring sky, and thought of the young American. She had heard the engines in the distance when they returned, and wondered if he would come. Danny O'Neill pulled the flying helmet from his tousled dark hair and blew a cloud of condensation into the air. It seemed he had been cold every moment since the boat had approached the Irish coast. The fog had hung thickly, and he fancied that there was no land, and they would just disappear into deeper and deeper mist and cold. But later the sun had come out, and there had been land after all. He had slept badly the first while, dreaming of the sweaty tropical heat and the summer sky of Georgia around him, only to wake up for early morning drills to the English weather in the coldest winter that England could recall. It had been strange sharing his space with so many people, but his ability to reserve himself and disconnect from his surroundings eased it, and he grew used to the bustle. It was the flying that stayed the same, the deep joy in leaving the ground behind, far below. He hadn't met any of his compatriots, though he'd heard rumors of Americans in both bomber and fighter command. He didn't know if anyone had figured out his nationality except Johnny and the Kirk household. The less people knew, the better. Either way, it wasn't something that he thought about a lot. He was entirely absorbed in his flying and the incredible handling capability of the little supermarine Spitfire that was his new love. He climbed out on the wing, stretching his legs. Off to his left, Johnny jumped off the wing of his gay-marked Spitfire with a whoop. Mad Irishman, that. And the reason Danny had something on his mind other than flying and the cold. It was confusing. He hadn't planned on any kind of involvements. He hadn't met many girls, hadn't thought about it all that much. It was easy if you didn't have family and worked to stay alive in a town where everyone thought they knew your business better than you did yourself. And yet here he was, on his way to clean up and go meet a girl, with nervous anticipation knotted in his stomach. It's a war, Danny. It makes no sense to start liking someone now. There might be no aerial combat yet over Britain, a sham war. But all over Europe it was getting more and more real by the day, and would inevitably be upon them soon. It was bad timing, and a bad idea overall anyway. But he clambered gratefully out of his flight gear, washed and dressed, and made his way to the Lark. She was sweeping the floor, dressed in a dark check skirt and white wide-sleeved blouse, her curly dark brown hair bobby-pinned behind her ears so her face was framed by it, and the curls fell loosely over her shoulders. His heart gave that same little jolt it had when he had first seen her. "Hello, Eleanor. We were on a sortie earlier, and I'm free for the afternoon, so I thought I'd come look in. How are you?" "Danny, I didn't hear you. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?" He thought that the way she emphasized her words, the smile with which she spoke them, made it the most genuine thing anyone had ever asked him. "I'm great." Her smile brought his out too. "I wanted to take you up on that invitation to walk you home." She looked the tiniest bit embarrassed. "It's still about 2.5 hours till I get off. Annabeth has the evening shift. Would you like to wait around?" "I don't mind if it's good with you." "As long as you drink something, so Duncan can't complain about my friends loitering." She smiled. "What can I get for you?" He had a beer, stronger and more bitter than what he had had before at home. "So, Danny O'Neill, You're here ready to go to war because you love flying. That's about the gist of it, but not all of it. I wanted a chance to build up a start. Maybe have an opportunity to build a career and put something away for a future. He closed his eyes for a second, then looked at her levelly. If I'm being very honest, I wanted to make a complete break from where I came from so badly that it seemed quite worth the possibility of being killed. She was waiting for him to continue, her grey eyes looking quietly back at him. And do you still think it's worth it? I don't know. I love and hate it. I hate the cold and how freezing and constant the rain is. I love the Spitfire. She's the most exquisite plane I've ever flown. You become part of her. No more pilot and machine. It's one beast. Sometimes you feel like a dragon in the clouds, a fierce predator. Sometimes when you're alone and the sky is just light around you and the clouds a silver grey cloth beneath you, you feel like a tiny moth flying into the sun. You feel things man has no words for, and everything is eternal. It's then that you know that you don't want to die. March 1940. Dear Mama and Father, how are you? We are all very well. It's been quite cold, but we are all healthy. How is the weather treating you in India? Jan has been in one of her cleaning frenzies and driven us quite nuts. How are you settling in? It took me some time to learn the bartending gig, but Duncan is a saint and so patient and helpful. Johnny has been doing his older brother duties and is checking in on me regularly. I appreciate him. He's still as much of a loose cannon as always. RAF discipline hasn't dampened his spirits in the slightest. He introduced me to a friend of his, a Canadian boy who came here to join the Air Force. He's very sweet and quite shy, but he becomes quite poetic when he speaks about planes. He's been walking me home a few times now, and I think I like him. Now don't make like Jan usually does and start with the wedding bells. Though I have to say she's been very good about it. Maybe it's because he's an outlander and friends with our Johnny. She has invited him back for Sunday lunch, though, so she doesn't dislike him. Duty calls. I have evening shift at the bar. I will write you soon to tell you tales of my dear sister, the gloomy weather, and the Canadian pilot poet. All my love, Eleanor.